So, do you feel caught up? Do you feel like you're getting everything that we've been talking about for the last 10 lessons? Well, this is 11, and we're going to wrap things up today just to go back and see everything we talked about, okay? So, tune in. In doing Bible study, of course, we've been talking about observation in these last 10 clips that range anywhere from more than several minutes, 7 or 8 minutes, up to 20 minutes, looking at the different kinds of things that I think are part of observing. And I'll cover them in a minute. But before we do that, I want to show you, you're going to spend some money besides time on Bible study. But there are some alternatives. So, like right here, we have the Blue Letter Bible. And then underneath there are some other ones, Bible Gateway, eSword, and My Bible, and I can't read that last one. It's a bit small for me. But they are all ones that we would, I'd say, go and give them a try. I would say that their references are limited. I know on the Blue Letter Bible, they're using Matthew Henry's commentary. Matthew Henry you're going back several hundred years. The thing about current commentaries is because of all of the information that has been uncovered in the last 500 years since the Reformation, there's just been so many things that have come to light for us to use, whether it's looking at the Greek language or Hebrew language for that matter, and other things that have been written. There are constant updates on commentaries and other resources, whether they be the Dead Sea Scrolls, finding new documents. There's all these things that are going on all the time. So our knowledge is fluid when it comes to studying the scripture, and it's good to stay up to date. We want to be able to know when we look at things like variants in the scripture, how many variants there are, what variants mean. All those things come to light when we have resources to study, to look over and make decisions on. But that all helps us with understanding what the scripture says so that we can understand what it means. So that's a very important part of what we do when we do Bible study. Okay, so I found a tool that, or a way of doing things that helped me out a little bit, and I love to write on blackboards, so I have something here, and give you an idea. We talked about eisegesis. I have to make sure I got all this spelling right. Eisegesis is reading into something. The word eis, I didn't say it the right way the first time around, but that EIS, what we say in English, epsilon, iota, sigma in Greek, we are going into something. So this is that we are reading into it. We're creating something by going into it instead of letting it read out to us. So in English, we say eisegetically or eisegesis, meaning we are reading into the scripture. We're doing it with 21st century language. The second one we talked about was exegesis. So exegesis is just the opposite. And it is reading out of something. We are letting something read out to us. And in hermeneutics or Bible study, we want the scripture to tell us what it's saying rather than us reading into it. We also talked about the me-we culture. We live in the me culture. We think that everything is individualistic, where the New Testament, especially the Old Testament, was a collectivist mentality or a collectivist subject. And so they looked at things as a family or as a whole, as a nation, as a tribe. We see everything as independent. I've got to be me. I've got to live my dream and divorce ourselves from any kind of collective mentality. We hear things like we're Americans, but really that just means I'm an individual. And while part of that is true, we are individuals, we also see that we're part of something. And if you were raised in a Southern European family, Mideastern family, North African family, you understand the we part of the culture rather than the I. And from that, we looked at what we call the honor shame. Make sure I get everything spelled right. The difference between an honor shame culture, that we have a culture that really is a right and wrong culture versus an honor shame culture. And we think things are right or wrong. And I think most of the Bible can think of things as honor and shame. And we illustrated that by seeing, the fourth commandment is honor your father and mother. Even though Paul says, or it's translated that Paul says, children, obey your parents, the word there is actually children, hearken to your parents. That would be the thing that was said there, rather than children obey in the sense of a strict obedience. It's hearken to their voice so that you might honor them. And we looked at other things like connections, and you may want to, I'm not sure I'm spelling everything right. I think there's two N's. Connections, we want to see parts of speech. Because tells us something. In Greek, they have a phrase called a hina clause. And a hina clause is, that's the way it's spelt in Greek. There's a H sound to that. I'm getting right in front of it. If I do it, you could see it better. The hina clause right on my forehead is a so that clause. That tells you there's a cause behind whatever the instruction is. Let me get rid of some of these things so we can write a little bit more on this side. So hina clauses are very important, and most of the times when the words so that are used, it's a hina clause. Not every time. That's why you have to go back and look. Hina clause is a very strong clause in understanding those things. So when we're looking at this, we want to be able to apprehend the realities that are there. What is the scripture saying? And then I talked about voice, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Voice is very important. Who's doing the talking, especially in a narrative? Luke narrates the Gospel of John in the book of, the Gospel of Luke in the book of Acts, but he also quotes people. And so you have Paul, and you have his voice when he's preaching, or Peter when he's preaching. That's not Luke, that's Peter or Paul or whoever else is doing it. James chapter 15. Herod speaking, Festus, any of them who are also giving their words. So we see their voice is a particular voice, and everyone has a different culture. Here's a freebie, no charge for this. You notice that first century Palestinians seem to be a little bit gruff. Read 2 Peter or Jude's epistle. They seem to be a little bit more demonstrative in their language and not really logical, or not that they're illogical, but they seem to use a lot of imagery, and they are in your face with it. You see that in James's epistle, not John's epistle, but Peter's second epistle, certainly, and the epistle of Jude. So you hear something different in the way that they say things. That's an important part of Bible study when we look at it. So those are things that are very significant to us. And earlier in one of the sessions, we talked about genre. And that's another thing. You have to identify what is the genre, whether it's a psalm, poetic book, a historical book, prophetic book, You have to be able to identify the type of literature it is. So all of those things are important to us as we study the scripture, and we want to be able to apprehend the scripture so that we can understand and study the scripture. So that's what I have for this session, and this will take you a bit of time, but I just wanted to catch up and see it. So now we can start to look at how we answer the questions that have come up as we've made observations. So you could see that I've been playing around with a lot of things, and forgive me for this, but I would also always remind you to please like the video, make a comment, subscribe if you haven't already, ring the bell so you'll be notified whenever we upload a new video, and hopefully we'll keep on getting better as we do this. So this is Ray Ciervo, and I'm signing off for now.